Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with strawberry sando. That's right, we are making a Japanese-style fruit sandwich, which is why it's called the sando. And I have to say, after you start calling sandwiches sandos, going back to calling them sandwiches seems a little bit cumbersome. But no matter what you call it, these are delicious, fun to make, and very, very pretty. And to get started, we will take the sweetest, best, ripest strawberries we can find, and we will hull them, which means trimming off the calyx, which is the green leafy thing on top. And for this, we're going to want to use the tip of the knife and just go in about 1/4 inch at about a 45-degree angle and trim around till that comes off. And when we do recipes that need lots of strawberries, sometimes we'll just trim straight across and cut off the entire top to save time. But if we want to see that beautiful heart shape when we cut our sandwich open, we really do want to trim them up like this. So we'll go ahead and prep our strawberries as shown, and then set those aside, at which point we can move on to trimming our bread, which in a perfect world is homemade milk bread. But I had to settle for some fancy white bread from the local French bakery. But no matter what you use, we're going to cut off the crust, while at the same time hopefully achieving a nice square shape. Which when you're using bread that has a rounded top like this one, which is sort of how almost all breads are, it can be a little bit challenging. But the good news is just try to get it close, and it's probably going to work out fine. And that's it. Once our bread's been decrusted and successfully squarified, we can move on to make our sweet whipped cream filling, which for me is going to start with some mascarpone cheese, to which I'm going to add a little bit of pure real vanilla extract, followed by a very, very small pinch of salt. Okay, just like 1/4 pinch. And then we'll sweeten this up with a little bit of powdered sugar, although regular white sugar will work. And then what we'll do is cream all this together with our hand mixer before we finish up adding our whipped cream. Oh, and I should mention this cream cheese is optional. And a lot of versions just use only whipped cream. So if you don't want that extra bit of richness, you can leave it out. I mean, you are after all the Marlon Brando of your strawberry sando. Oh, and speaking of the horror, whether you add the mascarpone or not, once you're whipping up the cream, you have to really concentrate on not doing it too soft or too firm. Or if it's too soft, the sandwich is not going to hold its shape. And if you whip this cream too long and it gets too stiff, it can actually separate and get grainy. And it will turn into something you don't want to eat. So basically what we're looking for is very stiff peaks, which are peaks that hold their shape on the ends of the beaters, and if you shake it, they do not move. And right here I decided I was just a few seconds away. And of course, to clean off the beaters, once you lift it out, just put it on high for a second, and any excess will fly off. Thank you, centrifugal force. And that's it. Once your cream is whipped perfectly, we will grab our bread, and we will spread a nice thick layer on both sides, or a layer somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick, which I believe is referred to as 3/8. And by the way, in a few moments, I'm going to show you a faster way to do that. But anyway, once both sides have been creamed, we will turn one slice like this, and we'll place our first whole strawberry down, with the tip going right up to the tip of the bread. And then we'll place a second berry right behind that, and then finish up with a third one. And to help save space, you can kind of nestle the tip of one into the depression on the top of the other, which in the business we refer to as centipeding. And once that's been accomplished, I'm going to cut a strawberry in half and place that on either side, with the tip pointed out. And if you want, you can use 2 whole strawberries instead of the half. But personally, I think the ratio is better if you go with a half. And then what we'll do is start piling on more cream, making sure we're spreading and pressing that in every nook and cranny. All right, we do not want to leave any air pockets uncreamed. And while you're doing this, don't be shy. All right, it might seem like you're putting on a lot, or maybe too much. But as you're going to see, you really do need that much for the sandwich presentation to work properly. And then what we'll do once we're eventually happy with the coverage is carefully place the second piece on top, and we'll give that a little bit of a pressing down. And then we'll take even more of the whipped cream mixture and start applying that to the gaps in the sides. And once those spaces are eventually filled, we will smooth things out the best we can. And once that's set, before we wrap this up, we should take a knife and we'll make a little cut to mark our bread from one point to the other, where we know those strawberries are running down the center. Since once this is unwrapped, if you cut it the wrong direction, it's not going to look beautiful. It's going to look stupid. And there are plenty of stupid looking sandwiches, so we don't want that. And this is my method. Most people just take a Sharpie and mark the plastic once it's wrapped. But as long as you know which way to cut, it really doesn't matter. And that's it. After wrapping that tightly, we will pop it in the fridge for at least an hour, or maybe a little bit longer. But apparently we're not supposed to make these too far ahead, because the bread can kind of get weird in the fridge. Oh, and a quick tip here. It's a lot easier to apply the cream if you pick the bread up. That just makes it easier to spread neatly to the edge. So that's how I did the second one. And then I repeated those same steps with the strawberries and the rest of the cream. And after wrapping and refrigerating those for about an hour and a half, I pulled one out. And after we have that unwrapped, we will find that mark we made earlier with our knife. So we're 100% positive we're cutting in the right direction. And that's it. We'll take a serrated knife, and using a nice slow steady sawing motion, we will slice through. And if everything goes according to plan, we should end up with 3 perfect heart-shaped strawberries in the center of each half, which is exactly what happened here. Oh, and the reason I switched to this small paring knife is because once cut, we're going to want to do a little fine-tuning, which means giving that fruit a little bit of a scrape to wipe off any excess cream and reveal more of that beautiful red color. And besides that, if we want, we can also grab a little more cream with the tip of the knife and apply that into any gaps so we have full cream coverage. And how much fussing around you decide to do is going to be up to you. And I did do a little bit more trimming off camera to make these sit nice and flat on the plate, or at least flatter on the plate. And as you can see, that second one, while still looking nice, featured berries that weren't quite as perfectly aligned. But even if these are less than geometrically perfect, I think they still make for a stunning presentation, which is very nice. But what do these taste like? Well, my friends, that is very easy to describe. They taste like fresh strawberries in sweet cream, which no matter what delivery system you're talking about, is almost always a wonderful thing. Oh, and forget I said that the mascarpone is optional, since I really do think these are so much better with that little bit of extra richness and butterfat involved. But by far the most important factor is that you're actually going to find some properly ripe, naturally sweet strawberries. Right, this thing's always going to look good, but if you really want it to taste good, the strawberries you use have to be sweet. And by the way, if you're intrigued by this idea, you should definitely do an image search for Japanese-style fruit sandos, so you can see all the different kind of fruits you can use to make these, as well as lots of super cool, very creative designs. But I was very, very happy with this simple strawberry-only version. And as long as you can find some beautifully sweet berries to use, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.